Hello guys, my name is Peter Curry. I'm actually a business partner of Tim's. I've been involved with Talkshow with the separate financial planning campaign way back when. Some of you guys may know me. It's quite late at night in Sydney, but I am tasked with the objective of providing you guys some background in the context of Australian finance. I am tasked with giving you guys some skills and tricks that you may use to overcome objections, but also giving you guys the foundation to know what we're actually talking about and what's actually out there. In today's video, I'm going to go through things like home ownership in the Australian context, the Australian psychology associated with that. I'm going to go through what the average Australian normally does, how the normal life cycle goes. I'm going to go through essentially your role around this process, which I know Tim goes through in a lot of detail, but I'm also going to cover some of that as well. And some means of actually establishing if the client is on track. Things that we can use as tools in our arsenal, at the discretion of Tim, of course, but I'm here to give you those tools, and if he decides that you guys should use those tools, they're here in your arsenal to discuss. And lastly, I'm going to go through some misconceptions, because you're going to come up with some objections that clients may very much see to be true, but aren't. And hopefully, when these objections come up, you may be able to actually deal with them in a means that not reflects some authority, but at least creates an element of doubt in the client that they may want to seek the next level of conversation. So, firstly, the home ownership conception in Australia. The Australians have been led a dream of home ownership. This is the dream that if you own a home in Australia, then you're set for life. When you ask the average Australian, what do they see their home as? They see it as an investment. They believe that it's always going to go up. And it always has gone up in a context of multiple things. Since, obviously, the coming of the baby boomers being the older generation of Australians, it's always seen to go up in principal value. And in context, it will. But the thing about home ownership is this is where you live. Not an asset, it's called a lifestyle asset, which is extremely important to understand, because let's say these people have this context that this house is their investment, where they live is their investment. The actual truth is, if they live here and if they sell at an increased profit, the next house they're going to live in is going to have that same capital growth associated with it. So if they decide to sell this house because it's made $600,000-$700,000 in equity, they are then buying into the housing market yet again with the same economic source. And if they decide to downgrade, yes, they'll still make a benefit, but they will then drop their lifestyle. So the question, Mr. and Mrs. Klein, here that we're here to discuss is, does your retirement strategy involve you dropping your lifestyle? Yes or no? Does this retirement strategy involve you renting for the rest of your life? Yes or no? No. Because the context is, the only way this works as an investment is if they choose to sell it, invest the money, and die. Right? And the die part is a very, very good point to make, because they never know when they're going to die. They don't know when this money can last to. Because let's say they've made $600,000. Big number. $600,000 means a lot, but not if you're earning $100,000 a year, right, Mr. and Mrs. Client? Because if you're earning $100,000 a year, then that means this house has just given you 6 years of life. Is 6 years of life enough for you to retire comfortably? Yes or no? And it's going to be no. Or you don't know, which is another important point, because they don't know, they can't plan around it. So in the context, is this house really an investment asset? No, it's a lifestyle asset. Right? No different to a car, no different to a holiday. Is at the end of the day, it's what you use to get by day and night. It is not what you use to grow. So Australian psychology is very important, because you say, how do you intend to retire? Well, my house is worth a lot. So where do you intend to live? It's a great point, right? Where do you intend to live? Oh, I want to rent after this point. Okay, cool. At what basis are you going to make money, right? Because here's the other thing, they may not have paid this down. And this is what we're going to get to. This is our main point that we're talking about today. It's how to pay down this mortgage. The average mortgage term here in Australia is 30 years. I don't know if you can read it, but it says 30 years. The average term of retirement is 30 years in Australia. If someone is buying a house, they're generally buying it in their 30s to 40s. Why is that? The average house, let's just talk about Sydney or as an example, the average house price here is around $900,000 nowadays, right? So for them to buy a house, they need a deposit. Let's assume 10%. That's $90,000, right? They then have to do something called stamp duty. Let's assume that's $50,000. If they're only doing 10%, they also have something called lender's mortgage insurance. Let's assume that's $25,000. So now they need a balance of $165,000 just to enter the housing market. To start from scratch, you need $165,000. Now, I understand you guys are in South Africa. I understand you guys have a different context of what Australians earn, but $165,000 is a lot of money, especially because $165,000 is not what they need to earn and save. It's what they need to save after tax. So the average Australian needs to clear $330,000. $330,000 have to clear because half of it's going to go to tax to get you that 165. But while they're renting, it may take an average of 10 years. 10 years worth of working life is the estimated time it takes for an Australian to save up for a deposit. 10 years worth of working time, let's assume they finish, if they're graduates or if they've finished a trade, they're starting their working life at 20 years old, actively earning. 20 to 30. Now, 30 years old is generally when they have the deposit in Australian circumstances. So at 30, you're about to engage into a 30-year contract to pay off that mortgage. And they don't always pay it off in 30 years' time because there's things that come up in life that involves refinancing and that balance grows. But why is that important? They're now 60 years old when that house is paid off. You are now 60 years old with a retirement age of 67. You now have 7 years to prepare for retirement. If it took you 10 years to get $165,000 together, what are you going to do in 7 years, Mr. and Mrs. Client? Mr. and Mrs. Client, is this sufficient enough time to retire? Yes or no? No. Do you want to pay off your mortgage for the next 30 years? Yes or no? The answer is going to be no. But what can they do? Alright, training video 1. I'm about to get back to you in 2 seconds about how they normally do it. I've got a little checklist there.